Hey everyone, it's the Shawn. Welcome to another edition of the Women Business Leaders Show. I am joined today by both my regular co-host Lea Woodford, more on her in a minute, and Amy Vetter. Amy is a fellow CPA. Those of you who may know us, I'm also a CPA. She's a fellow CPA, but she's out there really doing a lot of speeches about the future of business, some of the technology components are coming in there, and then also the skills that are needed for the future. So we've been looking for great women business leaders as we're bringing together this new show. And we want to get some lessons from Amy. So we're excited she's given us some time today, and we're looking forward to kind of digging into what she's seeing out there, what's working, what's helping her, and what's also working for other women. For those of you that don't tune in as often, Lea Woodford, my co-host, she's the editor of Smart Femme magazine, and she also runs the Smart Femme Network and the Smart Femme Summit. So a lot of women in business stuff there. We met several years ago. We've collaborated on several projects, this being one of our latest projects together. And I'm the Shawn. I'm a corporate lawyer by training. I help everything with ownership and control of businesses. So that's partnership agreements, mergers, capital raises, contract negotiations. But I also spend a lot of time looking to the future of business, which is where this show comes in. We're looking to really what the future of business should be, what women should be doing, and what we can all learn from each other. We love your comments, so wherever you're watching, whether it's one of our LinkedIn feeds, whether it's the Women Business Leaders YouTube channel, or somewhere else, drop your comments. We will be looking for them and hoping to engage with you and learn from you what lessons you need for the future and what's working for you. So we will be reading through those, look forward to those. We remind you, we do not do investment advice, we do not do legal advice on the show for those items. And I guess accounting advice as well. We got some CPAs here. For those items, talk to your own advisors. We just really want to bring you some education and some lessons that will help you in business. So that's our goal today, give you some ideas. You can go back and talk to your advisors about what might really work in your particular facts and circumstances. But today is all about ideas and growth and learning. So with that, welcome to the show, Amy. I'm so glad you can join us.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, so why don't you just tell us a little bit about what you've been seeing out there, what you've been up to, and what you're seeing with women in business these days.
Well, a little bit about me. I'm a keynote speaker. I speak at a lot of women's conferences, but also I'm a technologist besides being a CPA.
Yep.
And have worked in the tech industry for many years, as well as today do a lot of board work and advisory work with tech startups, trying to scale and really put together a go-to-market strategy. And I would say, I think there's more awareness in the corporate world of the diversity issue. I would say it's broader than women being a big, subset that gets a lot of, I would say, PR. Mm-hmm. However, there's also, just diversity in general that I think there's more awareness about. Mm-hmm. It's something that corporate leaders have to think about. On the negative side, there hasn't been much movement in the statistics for, so women leaders, women on boards, diverse leadership is still at pretty low percentages overall. But I would say in the conversations that I have with leadership groups, with venture capital companies, is that they are looking to change the makeup, understand the research behind it, because diverse thought helps create better strategy and so forth. But also even the investor companies are looking at the diversity of leadership teams to even decide whether they should invest in a company as well.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of attention on that. I mean, I think the big thing in the last couple of years, California had a lot of research on it. California's actually put some legislation in place to require women on boards, which you can see other materials on that. I mean, I don't know if that's the right direction to do, but we can all take different positions on that. But people are paying attention. The research does show that women lead to better returns. That part seems to be pretty undebated. So, Amy, what do you, when you're talking to organizations, when you're getting into not just, we focus on women in business in this show, but the broader diversity issues or the things you're talking about, how do you talk to organizations about starting to build that momentum or make those changes?
Well, a couple things. So one being from the women perspective and one being from the corporate leadership perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll start with the women first, that a lot of times the conversation or the articles on this is more pointed to the outside of what everybody else needs to change, like the California legislation and so forth, which is good. It brings awareness up.
Yeah.
But I would say as well, the really important thing that needs to happen is women helping women.
Yeah.
And, within, I think because, my best take on it over time, because it's been hard as a woman to get into leadership ranks. But I would say it's very lonely as a woman to get into leadership ranks because other women don't necessarily support you as well. And I think part of it is that we have this mindset that there's only one spot for a woman.
But Amy, can I just jump in really quick? Oftentimes there is only one spot, or you're competing with your superior. I mean,
I would just take maybe a different perspective on that. That I think sometimes, like was talked about in the beginning, is that there's a lot of research on just how females and males perceive things too. I personally, in my experience, have not seen there's a quota on women in the leadership room. What I have seen is that women aren't keeping their eyes open and saying, when that next opening comes up, what woman do I know to pull them in?
Yeah.
So, and then vice versa, because there's a perception of there only being one woman in the room or this quota per se, there can be women at lower levels not supporting that woman from a branding perspective because they feel like, oh, well, that person took my spot and I don't have an opportunity to do that. So a lot of what I talk about with corporations and women in general is how we get to be better at supporting each other, that to really take that stereotype down that there's only one spot.
Yeah.
Because, more of the work that needs to be done, because it has just worked out mostly in my career. It's, and, maybe it's been intentional or not, but I love working with women, and I'm pulling women all the time to try to take leadership positions. And there's hesitancy a lot of times with women to take on that next level. They feel like maybe they can't do it and so forth. And that's part of the work that we need to help women with, of like, you don't have to be perfect to take on that next role. It's part of the learning of the next role, where men will more easily go after it. And so when we can start opening up this conversation to really bring out, like, what are the issues among women to help support women as a group, we can help support each other to really change the paradigm. Not to say that, and I haven't talked about the corporate role, but there's a corporate role in this, but there is also a woman's role in this to make sure that we change the paradigm together.
I think you made a really excellent point there. I think women hold themselves back. I think sometimes they hold each other back, but I have seen, and it's changing now, certain women don't send the ladder back down. And you really do have to, I lead a whole team of millennial girls and I love it. But I think you, again, and you touched on this, women are waiting for the perfect opportunity, and there never is a perfect opportunity.
Yes.
Where men will just go for it.
There's research out there with resumes and job openings. If a man, or at least this cross section of men and women they studied, if a man matches maybe 75, 50% of the criteria for a job, I'm applying, right? I mean, I'm there, right? I've got 75% of the things you're looking for, whereas a lot of women will,
or not even that high.
They won't even apply unless they hit unless they hit 100% of the check boxes. A lot of women are self-selecting them out. Men say, hey, look, you're looking for 10 criteria. I got 5 of them, man. I'm good to go. Put me in. And a lot of women say, well, I have 9 of the 10 criteria, but I don't qualify for this job because I'm missing the 10th piece of experience or the number of years they're looking for or whatever. It's a really different mentality that happens, but it does create some real friction.
Well, and I think that's on both sides. Mm-hmm. So that's absolutely on the women's side, that all the research supports what you're saying is they don't go after the role unless they feel like they can check all the boxes. However, on the interviewer side, there is also research that women are held to a higher standard versus men based on their potential. And so, and these are really hard. I was listening, I think it was 60 Minutes. It was the HR person from Salesforce that they went and did this whole initiative to get pay the same in the organization and work toward getting this parity. And they did it. And then 1 year later, it was off again.
Yeah.
Because we have these innate, just human condition issues that really, and that's why these conversations are good, of how do we bring that up to the forefront and provide more awareness training around it and how we handle that.
Yeah, but I am seeing a big change in the younger women because they are being raised by, dads that are just saying, go baby, you can do it. Mm-hmm. And, we're not being forced in, oh, you can't do that, you're a girl, which is the way I was raised. Mm-hmm. So I think especially the younger women are coming up, and I think they're actually doing better than the millennial men, as far as they're getting more degrees, they're doing better, and they are launching faster. It's the millennial men that are getting hung up on this. So
I just did
movement.
Yeah, I did an article recently where Sales Hacker asked me to look at the fact that there's a large group of millennial men that are missing from the workforce. I mean, they're just out, right? It's like they can find their job, they don't fit in. So if you look at the employment statistics, there's this huge group of millennial men that are missing from the workforce.
Well, a lot of them are doing startups.
They're doing startups, but they're not reporting themselves.
Or they're playing video games.
Yeah, they're playing. Well, that's what people really think is that, there's these men that just are like, hey, I'll just stay in my parents' basement and I'll play video games.
A lot of them are.
But they're not participating. They may be doing startups. Maybe they're not showing up on the government statistics, so they're doing it. But what they really think is they don't have a job at all. They're not doing a startup. They're looking for this perfect job. But that tells you something about the generations. And I think that's part of this future dynamic, right, is men and women are behaving differently even in the new generation as they're coming into the workforce.
Definitely seeing that on my end. I work with a whole team of millennials. And I can say right from the 30-year-old to the 22-year-old, I think these girls, they're getting double degrees. They're very articulate. They know what they want and they're going for it. And I'm seeing less of that from the men. I am seeing less of that.
Yeah, so I mean, there's some studies that kind of show this type of participation. So Amy, back to dealing with the corporate environment. I mean, I love the awareness the Me Too movement has brought. I am not a fan of what I hear from some of the people, which is, we just won't hire women. I mean, I've actually heard companies say this, right? Like, so the answer to the Me Too movement is just don't have women there because they can't sue you, right? And that's a ridiculous response, but people are going that extreme. Because of the amount of attention that's been generated. But building that corporate culture, what do you recommend, particularly for organizations that, that are large enough they have to take this for real, right? It's going to show up in their statistics. They're going to be found out if they don't take women for real. What do you start doing to build that right culture?
Well, I think it's actually coming from the customer perspective. So who are you serving as customers, and building your team to be a reflection of your customer base? Because if your boardroom or your leadership room is not reflective of the people that you serve, then you're not really having the right perspectives in the room. And so rather than being so focused on one gender group or, minority group, I think it's important to think about what do your customers look like and how do you best represent them on your leadership team to make sure that they have a voice. Secondly, one of the things that prevents a company from moving forward, a lot of times what you hear is corporate leaders saying, well, they didn't apply,
Right.
you know, and so I couldn't change the paradigm. But however, that isn't necessarily the way to go about it, because if people don't see themselves in your organization, they're not going to apply, because it doesn't seem like a comfortable place to work or where they would be accepted. So more proactive work to find out what are the profiles, again, building your profiles of what you want your leadership team. So their background, diversity, customer profile matches, and that sort of thing. And then go proactively find those people. And then as those people start coming into your organization, find out where they go to network, where they go to meet people, and start shifting your networking and recruiting to go where they go, so that you bring more people in that are in different diversity groups that maybe you just weren't used to going to, or you didn't even know about, because you don't have people, you know, in those minority groups in your organization, or never asked.
Yeah, well, that is one of the statements you'll hear a lot, you know, and it's one of the reasons that, you know, people tend to hire people like them, right? So if you have a male organization, and then, you know, one of the famous cases out there is a very large transnational company put in AI to start screening resumes, and even that looked at the existing resumes of the people and said, well, we need these characteristics, and it started, you know, using bias in applying it. So definitely something about being intentional about breaking out into new circles.
Yeah.
Now, Amy, where would you recommend it's networking? Because for most people, they're not going to meet these kind of people at the Chamber of Commerce or B&I. So what would you suggest?
Well, again, I think it's asking the base that you're trying to go after. I mean, I was talking to one of these tech startup companies that I've worked with, and they were trying to get a more diverse culture and get more African Americans to be working there. And they started asking some of their engineers that were African American, like, where do you go? And there was like an African American tech group that they didn't even know about that this group was going to. And so they immediately started asking these guys to go and start recruiting and helping them draw that in. And I think that's what I'm talking about. It's like that alternative way of recruiting. You know, it's not necessarily, like you said, going to the Chamber of Commerce and the typical places that you've gone before, or the career fairs that you've gone before. It's finding where people are networking, where are they finding like-minded people. And it might be within social media, or, you know, private Facebook groups or LinkedIn, you know, finding those thought leaders that have that profile of the people that follow them are the people that you would want in your organization, you know, and so forth, that can help kind of change the way you go after different profiles for your organization.
Excellent. Yeah. So a lot of intentionality about where you're sourcing from. I'd like to shift gears a little bit and think in terms of a particular woman out there. So if you're a woman and you're trying to build your career, you want to set your direction. What advice do you have, Amy? Like, just what tips, tricks, ideas would you say to find the right organization and then try to advance within it?
Well, I think, I mean, just finding an organization is always hard, because when you go through the interview process, everyone's always got their best face forward, right? Like, it's really going inside your network and making sure that you can find people that work there that you can get the real answers to. I always find it interesting when I do some of my talks to corporations, and I've got a survey tool that comes through anonymously, and you can walk in and think the organization is totally there just by perception, and then the answers that come back, they're dealing with the same exact issues.
Right.
So I think what's important is to not expect mentorship to happen for you. Like, you need to seek it. You need to go and find the people that you look up to, whether they know they're your mentor or not, you can actually learn from them by watching what they do.
Yes.
But you can also be asking them to go to lunch and so forth, to meet with them or meet with them online if there's someone that doesn't live in your geography. But being proactive to find that network that you can bounce things off of, I think is really important. The other thing is that what comes easy to us is to find other people that are like us, right? That when we go and complain to them, they're like, yeah, you're right. Where it's just someone that completely sees eye to eye with you. It is important to find your opposite. So when I say that, like, I'm an extroverted person. If I go find another extroverted person, they are going to give me feedback from that perspective. But what I need to seek is an introvert as one of my mentors, because if I'm in a boardroom or a leadership team meeting, I need to understand how I'm making an introvert feel as well, and change my communication style to be inclusive of who's ever in that room. But if we only seek people like us, then we aren't necessarily going to get the information, the education that we need to keep expanding ourselves.
Yeah, and I'd like to underscore that point. I mean, I think that's really important. There's unfortunately a lot of literature out there that tells women in business to act like men in business, which I don't think is the right answer.
No.
So you've got to kind of blend those styles like you talk about. I mean, I think a big piece of this is embracing the style. And then you talk a little bit about it, really build your own mentorship plan, right? You may or may not even find that within your company, because a lot of companies today aren't making those kind of forward investments. So you may have to look outside the company, maybe somebody in a parallel company or a parallel career path.
Well, and I think the being like a man was my generation, Leah's generation. Yeah. Because when we went into the corporate world, we were told to dress a certain way. We were told to behave a certain way. It wasn't comfortable. That is a big change in the environment today. People are accepted, even men, to dress in different ways, to have earrings, to have tattoos, whatever it is. Everyone's trying to look past the facade to say, what does that person really offer the organization, right? And that's, I think, been a real shift in the last maybe 5 to 10 years. Like,
Huge.
It's been where you just completely don't care about that stuff. But when the problem is, we do have, from my generation and Leah's generation, the mindset of you had to act this way to make it. Yeah. And so that's where a younger millennial woman, or even a Gen Z, and so forth, need to be very careful about the advice that they're getting and be aware of that, because I still hear women saying that to younger women, and I don't think that's the case anymore. I think, like, my sons have seen a totally different way of growing up, because they had a mother that has been a corporate leader and a business owner and so forth. So their perspective of women is much different than our generation of men. Right. Yes. And so we have to be very cognizant of the advice that we give to younger women, to make sure that they don't come off too abrasive, feeling like they have to be the man in the room, and what is unique about them to offer to really get ahead.
Right. And I'm not saying that some women do not have that take charge, lead, and run the team, but that doesn't have to be your style, right? If that's not your style, don't do that, So
exactly. I think it depends on really where some women are incredibly masculine and some men are very feminine, and some just kind of I kind of walk both paths, I've got a little bit of both in me, and that works for me. But I think you're right. I think we really do have to mentor the younger women and to make them confident in themselves, so they don't have to be who they're not.
Right.
And I think that's just huge.
Yeah. So Amy, you're a wealth of information. You obviously understand this issue deeply. Why don't you tell folks a little more about your work, what you got out there, and how they can connect with you, and maybe somebody needs your help at some point in the future.
Sure. So thank you again for having me on. I'm a keynote speaker. I'm also an author. I wrote a book called Business Balance and Bliss, and was actually the antithesis of how, going through this corporate life of really pushing until one moment where you realize, what was I working for?
Yes, I've been through it, and I think it's a male and female phenomenon.
Absolutely.
I did it in a big law firm, so
yeah. And so really trying to find this work-life, what I call harmony, of bringing that all together and making sure that you're still finding that authentic self, that person inside you, and how you show up to work and connect better with the people around you, whether it be at work or at home. So you can find more information. I have an online learning program called the B3 Method Institute, which stands for Business Balance and Bliss, that gives online learning, like 5 to 10 minute pieces of learning each week, to help people really go on that journey and be able to make it real for them. So my website is amyvetter.com, VETTER, and you can find all my information there.
Cool. Well, great. That's very helpful, Amy. We really appreciate you joining us today and giving us such great insights. We always encourage our audience members, take a moment, pat yourselves on the back for doing the hard work, for being here, for investing in yourself. Also want to direct you to futureofwomeninbusiness.com, where you can see our past episodes, see our upcoming episodes. You can also join our email list to get some inside tips. So folks, looking forward to seeing another episode. We're really looking forward to seeing your comments wherever you're watching. And once again, Amy, thanks for making the time with us.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you.